everybody, it's Crys'Dawna, and today I'm going to show you how to fix some missing furniture trim. I want to show you guys what we're working with first. There are two sides to this headboard that have missing trim. So this part right here, and then over on the other edge, there is an even bigger piece missing. So I'm going to show you guys how I fix this. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell. Remember, everything I use will always be in the description below. Let's get started. Okay, so first I'm going to put some wax on my wood. I'm using the piece that isn't broken as my mold, so I'm going to put some wax on there to act as a resist. That way it'll be a little bit easier to take my hot glue off. You are going to need some hot glue, so I'm going to put hot glue over top of this trim that is intact. And what we're doing here is we're making a cast. We're making a mold of that. We're making a cast mold of that trim that is intact, so that way we can rebuild that mold that's on the other side. And so you're going to go over it with your hot glue. It is going to drip down. Don't worry about it. It is going to be really hot. You probably shouldn't use your finger, but I used a tongue depressor to kind of pull that extra hot glue that drips down. The main goal here is to create a cast of that actual trim that you want to replicate. So that's what we're going to do here, and then you're going to allow it to completely harden. Once the glue has hardened, you're going to carefully pull it off. It is going to be flexible. It shouldn't rip or do anything like that. It's pretty flexible right after it has dried, but I carefully pull it off. That wax has acted as a resist, but I'm just going to go slowly. That way I don't ruin it. You just never know. It probably won't get ruined, but I'm also super careful. So you're going to pull this off, and this is what is going to be your mold for your missing furniture trim. Once you get your mold off, you can kind of butt it up against the area that you want to fix. That way you can visualize. So I'm taking this outside because the first thing I'm going to do is use Big Mama's Butta as a resist inside of here. It is an oil-based, and so that's why I'm using a resist, that as a resist, because it will be so much easier to get my Bondo out if I use an oil-based. I mean, you can try a water-based wax, but I just know that this works, and so that's why I use the oil-based. So now what I'm doing is I'm using my version of Bondo. I live in Germany. So basically this is a two-part wood filler. I know Minwax has something similar to this. So if you're not using Bondo, you could use that two-part wood filler that Minwax has. What you do is you scoop it out of the tin, and then you use the hardener, and you only put a little bit of hardener on there. Usually the hardener is a different color, and you're going to fold it into each other and mix them really well. You want to work fairly fast because this will start setting and hardening within just a few minutes. So you want to make sure that you mix it and then you are ready to rock and roll. So don't mix it thinking that you're going to do this a half an hour later, because that is not what's going to happen. So now I'm going to fill these molds up with this Bondo, and I'm going to try to level off the top. That way I don't have to sand that. But don't worry too much because you can actually manipulate these. Once they dry, they will be really hard, and you'll be able to sand them down and manipulate them the way that you want. So if it's not completely perfect, don't freak out. It'll be okay. So I'm just going to fill both of these up, and then I'm going to leave them outside to set up. Now, Bondo is kind of smelly, so I'm outside doing this. Make sure that you are in a well-ventilated area or you are going to give yourself a headache. I also use gloves because it's just smelly. It's just smelly stuff. It's awesome stuff, but it's super smelly. So now you want to set these down and let them completely harden. I usually come back probably about a half an hour later. Now these are set up. I brought them inside, and I'm going to just peel that hot glue off of the Bondo, and you can see that it has made us a little applique or, trim piece. And so I'm going to pull these off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to butt it up against the missing area just to make sure, do like a dry fit to make sure that that is exactly what I want. So I'm going to butt it up against here, and I am happy with what it looks like. So we're going to take some Titebond Quick and Thick. The reason why I'm using this is because Bondo is not wood. So I would normally use a wood glue if I'm using wood on wood, but this is for multi-surfaces. So I'm using this so that I can adhere this Bondo to the wood piece right here. So I'm going to put that on there, and you want to make sure you do it the right way. Okay, so I had it upside down and I knew that it looked kind of weird, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I flipped it upside down. So make sure you double check that because you don't want that to be permanently glued on there. So now that I have it right here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take tape and I'm going to secure it in place, and I'm going to allow that to fully dry because I will be sanding this. I want to make sure that that glue is 100,000,000% dry before I start manipulating that Bondo. Once it's dry, I pull the tape off, and now I'm going to start sanding. So I start with an 80 grit. Remember, Bondo is super, super hard. So you are going to have to use a lower grit, like an 80 grit, to really start shaping it first. So I'm using an 80 grit first, and I'm going to shape it around, and then once I'm happy with it, I'll start smoothing it out. So I'll go from an 80 grit to a 120 grit to a 220 grit. So the 80 grit will help me shape it, the 120 grit will help me kind of do a little bit of shaping and smoothing, and then the 220 will perfectly smooth it out before it's ready for paint. Once you have it to where you want it and it is shaped and smoothed out, then you are going to go ahead and paint it. And so now you have a piece of trim that was missing before, and you have made your piece go to the next level. So this is really easy, and I suggest that you do this on pieces that are missing if you can, if you have the capabilities, because this is going to take your work to the next level. You want to make sure that you're not just painting over things that are missing. You really want to fix them first, and this is an easy way to fix it. So this is my final product. It's all crackled and aged and things like that. So that was where that missing trim was, over on the right, no longer. And then on the left-hand side, I did the same process with this, but that part on the left I showed you in the beginning of this, that is what I fixed. So hopefully that was helpful, and I will see you guys next time.